Okay, and welcome to take two of this video to answer questions people asked about my Raijintek and video I made a little bit earlier regarding the Cougar QBX. Basically, these were made for VR. I got tired of lugging my big PC around, so I decided to build two small four-factor PCs. Well, decided to build one, then ended up building another one a month and a half later, 2 months later. This case, I think, is, especially in person, really good looking, and smaller than the pictures would lead you to believe. I was thinking it was a bit bigger. It's actually in every dimension, width, length, and height, a little bit smaller than the QBX. The layout is different, which has some advantages and some disadvantages. First, I like the front I/O, nice and clean. I don't like that button. I wish it was here. In other words, if this was placed somewhere else, I could put an additional SSD in the front. I think I've got two. I could probably put a third one if this was placed one of the corners out of the way. But they wanted it like that, and they wanted their logo. I don't like that big white light up button, but it is what it is. Still a nice looking case. One of the things I did different was everyone said how this case is made to support a 240 AIO. And I thought to myself, just a 240, man, I want a 280 because I like high performance PCs, especially for VR. So I decided to, when I got it in, try my 280 AIO and see if it fit, and sure enough it did. So I drilled my own holes up top, and just like I did on the Cougar QBX, which also supports officially a 240, which also now mine has a 280. I made the template by putting a piece of paper over the I/O, penciled, scratched on it to have my holes show up, and I used that template to find where these holes go, and that's what I did. So I drilled my own holes. The 240 would use the space here. Unfortunately, that means that instead of being when you put this on, those screws are now going to make this kind of come up a little bit. If you would maybe find some screws that are more flat, you could probably get that look a little better. What I did was I just kind of cut out some of the magnet strips on where the screws go, so that would makes it stand out less, and it's a little less obvious when you put it on. And since this is set up as exhaust, you don't really need this, but I think it looks better with it on than with it off. So I'll leave that there. Yeah, and there's plenty of room for this AIO. I mean, it fits really well. The other thing is, as someone asked, since the original reviews talk about how that long part of the back makes getting the AIO hard for the tubing to get in there. Raijintek has fixed that. I'll show you a picture here. Someone asked for a picture. I thought I had one of the case completely empty, but I can't find it. This is one once I started populating stuff inside the case. Over here, this kind of honeycomb mesh was the whole thing. And then the tubes for the AIO would have a hard time clearing that, and it would put a big kink to get a tube to come over. What they did now is that mesh is here, the honeycomb mesh is here, there's a cutout here, a bar, a cutout. There's a bar here, but it's removable. These are 2 screws and 2 screws. So I removed it, and then getting the AIO in there was super easy. Once I had it in, I suppose I could put one tube over, one tube under, and put that back on, which I probably should have done because there's a little bit of flex when you push on it. But I didn't. It's not in there. It's not a big deal, so I'll leave it like that unless I ever have to mess with it again, and maybe I'll consider putting it back in. But this is what it looks like now. To be honest with you, having that honeycomb mesh across like that, I think is better looking. But truthfully, once you put stuff in there, you don't see it. The back side of the video card covers it. On the front side, I got my cables from the power supply, covers most of it, so it doesn't really matter. And it's much more functional getting that cooler in there, so that is a plus plus. Additionally, on the bottom, it's supposed to hold a 120mm fan. I put a 240 in there. I saw a video where someone else did that, and I was like, oh, good, it works, because that was what I was thinking about doing. And I'll show you how I did that. Basically, there's not all the screws for it, but take out the filter. This, I believe, is a hole that was already, no, this was a hole that was already there. I just used that, and I think on one of the corners I ended up drilling my own hole. Can't remember which one, but one of these I drilled. The other one was just a hole, one of these little holes that was already there. This is for the fan. This is what I used. And then the other two, I could have, but it wasn't worth the effort to clear a little material here and here. When 2 screws will hold it in just fine. So, 140mm fan so I can move some air in the case. Here's the power supply, which goes on the bottom, little cable that goes like this. The good thing about this case is you can use that on-off switch easily. It's on the bottom, you gotta lift it up. On the Raijintek, you gotta unscrew some screws, remove the top cover to access this, because this is towards the top of the case. So I kind of like this. This is kind of nice. Put this back on. So 240mm fan will work quite easily. Drill one hole. That's all you really have to do. Drilling your own holes for your radiator. You can get a 280 cooler in there. That keeps my 9900K, which is a pretty good chip. I can hit 5 gigahertz at 1.25 volts. And my temps are the worst case scenario. I can get it up to in the mid 80s synthetic load. In gaming, rarely. High 70s maybe, usually more towards the mid 70s depending on what it is. Considering the temperatures in my room are really high, most of the time I'm quite content. Highly recommend using a small form factor PSU for a case like this. It is just much easier on you. Yeah, I still got this on because I'm not sure if I'm going to do any more work on here, so I'm going to leave this on for now until I know that I'm done. SFX power supply, way to go. You have more room for air movement, cable management. You could use an ATX if push comes to shove, but I would highly recommend a SFX power supply. This is the Corsair SF 750. I like them to be 750 minimum for my builds, just to have a little extra, though it never hurts, but that's what I got. My memory is that ridiculously blingy G-Skill Royal, Trident Z Royal. I didn't really want the Royal, I just wanted the RGB. I'm not a big RGB guy, but in a case like this, I needed something because it was so dark. I like being able to see inside. I mean, if there's a leak or something, I want to be able to see inside if it's, you know, little lighting. So I got the Royal because the regular RGB, Trident Z RGB, was not available. So I ended up with the Royal. It's okay, looks fine. A little too blingy for me, but looks fine. A little LED there. I did put a Fantex Halo ring, which adds, you screw it onto the top of the fan and it adds LED lights to my Noctua fan. It's a Noctua industrial fan, so it's black color. Because like I said, I wanted to light up the case because I want to be able to see inside and see what's in there, and if anything was going on, I want to be able to see. It doesn't give me enough light, and I'm not going to put 2 of these up here. That's too much. Not to mention that if I did that, I don't know if I could. It might interfere. It would add a little bit of thickness, and it would probably interfere with my GPU on the other side. There's some screws in here which you remove. You can take this off. There's 2 SSDs, an SSD bracket inside, which I'm not going to bother removing because other videos could show you that. But if they did it right, you could have gotten 3 SSDs in here. In fact, in one of the videos, someone was talking about how he contacted Raijintek and they showed him concepts for this, and in one of those concept photos they showed 3 SSDs, but they decided to go with the nice Raijintek logo button in the center over practicality, which makes me sad. A nice little rectangular button right here would have been perfect, and I could have put 3 SSDs in there, and that would have been a much better option for me, because that's much more practical than that. I don't like that. But actually, you know what, in person it's not as bad. In videos I saw and I was like, still don't like it, but it's not that bad. I would have liked better a small button here. You know, they could maybe put a little R on it or something for Raijintek, or up here, somewhere on the side where it would not take up space for something like an SSD, which I think is more important. this is where you see the gap, small gap. You can, I don't know what size it is, but you can get new standoffs that are longer. If you buy standoffs that are a little bit longer, you can make this get a little more clean. So I'm going to try that and see how that works out, because as it stands, my 1080 Ti was getting up with this on in my warm. It's, granted, it's a warm room, but it was, it was not a super warm day. This, which inside my regular case would be into the mid 60s, this hit 86 degrees on heaven benchmark after several long minutes. I'm not sure exactly how long, but I let it go, and then once it hit 60, 86, I was like, okay, that's enough. It took a while to get there, but it got there. It didn't take that long. I took this off, and it was maybe got up to 77 on the heaven benchmark. When I'm gaming, I don't know exactly because I don't game on this thing a lot, but I take this off. I did VR last night in this of my Samsung Odyssey Plus, and at first I had this on just to see how it would go, and really quickly it was at 78, 79. Took this off, boom, it dropped. It was much cooler. So the glass is nice, but there's just not enough air. You're choking on those fans. If you have a less powerful GPU, you might be able to get away with it. But still, I think I'm going to try longer standoffs, get a little more air. In Europe, I know they now have available the aluminum side panel vents, which I'm considering doing, except I'm not a blingy guy, but I really do like the way this looks when it lights up on the side of the case. I mean, you never see the bottom of your GPU when it's in most cases. And I would never put a side panel in a regular thing because it chokes it off. It's not worth it. But in a case like this, there's a reason why it's there, and it's because you're getting this sandwiched and you're getting a lot of stuff in a small form factor. So what I may end up doing eventually is finding a piece of plexiglass, roughly that size, cut it, shape it, and either drill some holes or maybe cut some pattern slots. It could be the same way, or maybe some this way, some this way. I'm not sure yet, but it's a piece of plexiglass so I can still see my GPU, but that I can cut into it and give it ventilation. So that might be something I'll do down the road. If you'd like to see that, let me know. Like I said, these are probably crappy videos because I'm just throwing it together last minute. I promised some people that I'd try to throw something together this weekend, so I'm rushing to get this out so that I can fulfill that promise. People that I asked about the build. My next upgrade is for VR. I want as much horsepower as possible, especially with the newer headset coming out with high resolution. 2080 Ti, maybe. It won't fit. There's not enough room, so I would need those standoffs for sure. But luckily, that 2080 Ti is actually a little bit, it's thicker, but it's thinner this way. So there's more room here. Like right now, I cannot take this card out without removing the AIO because I can't get it up enough. So when you're installing this, you need to put the GPU in first, and then install your AIO on top. That's the way I did it, I believe. Yeah, so for the 2080 Ti, it's going to be thicker. This is definitely going to have to come out more, and hopefully I'll get a vented panel in here because it's probably going to need it. We'll see how that works out if I ever do that. But I have to admit, the Samsung Odyssey Plus with this seemed to work well. You don't have to super sample very much because it is a higher resolution display in the Samsung versus the Vive anyway. So this might be adequate for now, but who knows? Maybe I'll get it. Maybe I'll hold off till the next generation of cards. That'll to be determined. Yeah, I have to say, building in this was fairly straightforward, especially since they fixed that bracket and you can get the AIO in there pretty simple. If you can drill your own holes and put it at 280, you can fit some powerful hardware. My CPU, this one is probably, I have three 9900Ks. One is in a water-cooled 360 open loop cooler by EK kit, performance kit, and that one takes 1.33 volts to hit 5 gigahertz, and with a 360 open cooler, it is on par. In fact, I think this actually runs a little cooler on a 280 because it only takes 1.25 volts, but it still hits 5 gigahertz. All cores and unlimited power. set all that to max. So yeah, I don't know if it's the chips are getting better over time, or if I got lucky in the two that I put into a small form factor PC require less voltage and can get away with a smaller cooler and still perform equally or as good as my open loop. So hopefully it's that they're getting better, and that their manufacturing process is gotten to where they're running cooler. They're not as hot as they were when they came out. So you don't have to fear. I mean, it is a hot chip, but it's not super crazy hot like people were saying, to the point where you need a really big cooler or an AIO. I wouldn't recommend going smaller than a 280 if you're going to overclock. If you're not, 240 might be okay, but a 280 is adequate. If I can do it in my hot South Florida room in the upstairs, which is an extra hot room, I think most people should be okay, as long as you're doing either a Noctua or maybe a Deep Cool Assassin 3 or something, the new one that just announced, supposed to be, compete with the Noctua NH15D, I think, or a 280. In this case, you can't fit a big cooler, so you're going to need, what I would recommend is a 280 if you're going to overclock a 900K, and this will do that. So for maximum performance on the go, well, not on the go, but maximum performance, something you can take with you to friends' houses and stuff, or LAN, people still do that. This is the way to go. And for VR, I wanted maximum horsepower. If you want something a little bit less horsepower, that's enough for you, then this will probably not have any issues, with the exception of the GPU. I would at very least get a longer standoff. So I'm going to look into real shortly to increase this gap, get a little more air in there, preferably something ventilated. Either buy the ventilated aluminum side or get a piece of plexiglass, make your own, and vent it, which is probably what I'm going to look at, because I want to be able to see my GPU. It just looks cool when you turn it on. All right, now having said that, let me go ahead and plug this in so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Boom. I don't like rainbow colors. I like to stick to like one color, like blue, or it could be white or something. And the fans don't spin for normal everyday use. Only when they hit a certain point they'll spin. So if you're gaming, they'll start spinning, but most of the time they don't spin if you're just in Windows and surfing the internet and stuff. But I like that. I like the way that looks. I never saw this part of this GPU that I've had since 2016 until I put it in here. Yeah, my RAM's supposed to not be that color. I don't like the rainbow stuff, but it's supposed to be a blue. And unfortunately, it's rainbow right now. I have to go into the software and change that. I'm not sure why it hasn't kicked in. But and I put that. Whoops! Sorry. That Fantex halo thing, and it illuminates the fan a little bit, so it puts a little bit of light. Ideally, if you really wanted to do this and you're really concerned about looks, I'm more a performance than looks guy, more about gold than show. But of course, even at SFX power supply in the small case, those cables are going to be a little longer than you need, because I don't know what size case you're putting it in. Ideally, if you really cared, you'd buy some custom length cables. It's hard to spend 60, 70, 80, 90 bucks on custom length cables. Just I can deal with that. Maybe down the road one day I'll say, what the heck. But yeah, right now I don't feel like spending money. Oh, there we go, turn blue. Just finished booting. So custom length cables, if you're really into that, would help clean it up a little bit. Otherwise, I don't know, it looks like a mess, doesn't it? In real life, when it's a little bit darker and I don't have all this lighting on, but lighting it up, you don't notice it as much. I got a big work light on to light up when it's dark, but normally you wouldn't really notice. And you can get you can do all kinds of lighting things. Like I said, I'm not a big RGB guy, but in a glass case, a little lighting to spruce things up. And I like to have my case illuminated so I can see what's going on inside. I like that, so that's about as blingy as I get. Anyway, if you have any questions, comments, leave them below. I will try to answer anything you have. If I forgot to say anything, feel free to ask. Again, I should get rid of the sticker right down the line. But anyway, I'll try to answer and stay on top of things, and maybe I'll make some more videos that are actually a little bit better planned than just this ramble. But I'm trying to get it out to keep my word. So there you go. All right, you guys have a good one, and I'll see ya next time. Bye-bye.